Everybody? It's your boy T-Bird coming in hot for another episode of the White Collar Reacts Survivor Season 47 Finale Edition. DJB, what's up?
Just happy to be here, Bird. Loving life, loving Survivor. Let's go.
Surviving and thriving. I like it. So, where we last left off our castaways, basically, we shot a bunch of people in the head. It is down to the final four. We've got. Oh, you didn't see those deleted scenes?
Blacker.
They executed them by firing squad. Literal Survivor.
Jeff upped the stakes this season.
Yeah, the tribe has spoken, bitch. No, so we're down to the final four. We've got Rachel, the Juggernaut. We've got Sam, the Schmoozer. We've got Teeny, the Teeny Weenie, and we've got Sue, the Pooh. Who are you rooting for, TJV?
Okay, I have two things, and you might slightly hate me for one.
Okay.
I really like Rachel, but I don't want her to win because that means you're right. And even though I love you, I don't want you to be right because I'm competitive. And you already beat me in fantasy football, and I can't stand to see you win again. So I'm rooting for Sam for those reasons.
I wouldn't be mad if Sam won. That's my boy. And I bet if we knew each other in real life, we could play games of beer pong and high five while taking shots of Fireball.
Wow, that sounds great. I feel like we do know each other in real life because this is real, but just
no, Sam and I.
Oh, Sam and I.
Sam won. You know, that's my boy for sure.
I thought it was because we're hundreds of miles apart. You're not counting this as real life.
I mean, it exists somewhere.
It's never been more realer to me.
Still a fantasy for me.
I bet it is, perv.
a Survivor podcast where we have intermittent technical difficulties. Yeah, that's the dream.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've got the four finalists. I get it. I understand you don't want me to be right. But she's played the best game.
She has.
I don't know how anyone can beat her at this point.
It hasn't even been close. Genevieve was the only one, and like we talked about it. They talked about it to like an annoying degree.
Yeah,
but
they were like bragging about it, like it's us two, right? And everyone's like, "Fuck these bitches."
But if she doesn't win immunity and she has to go to fire and she loses, that's the only way she doesn't win the whole thing. She has played an amazing game. Like, she's been fortuitous in some senses. Like, Saul saved her when clearly she was the vote. She's had the ball bounce her way a couple times. She got the idol and the fries. Like, you know, there's been some things that have definitely helped her out, but it is a game of luck mixed with skill.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna like just deny the gifts you're given, right? Like, oh no, I want to win fair and square. Get out of here. No, like, you know, they're gonna try and use that against her. Like, you had the easiest road to the finals. Well, really, the only one would be Sam, because Teen's just happy to be there, and Sue just wants to rub dirt on her face. Like, I don't think either of these two people are actually playing.
Yeah, but have you seen the contours on her cheekbones? My goodness, just phenomenal.
Very skeletal. Yeah. Very skeletal. It's giving Indiana Jones and, you know, the Temple of Doom.
Oh boy.
Anyways, so the episode starts off with the final four. They're all celebrating. You know, Teeny's bragging that, you know, we got Genevieve gone because she kept on lying to her, and you know, like, she was like, why you keep on fooling me? So she's happy Genevieve's gone. You know, she's bragging. It's like, how many people have we beaten? And it's like, we?
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was at. It's like, how many times were you on the wrong side of the vote and you just didn't have any votes put on you because you were never a threat?
Never. And then Sam, also in his confessional, like, he's like, I think I got this. Like, I think And you got to be confident. You got to be confident. But I'm like, you guys are insane if you think Rachel doesn't just sleepwalk into a win.
Yeah, and part of me wonders like what the awareness level was of the other players in relationship to how Rachel was playing the game. Like,
Yeah.
because I do think there were a lot of things that we were privy to as the audience that other like castaways might not have been. And some of those conversations that clearly showed that she was not on a level playing field with everybody else when it came to just intellect and social savvy. Because every time she was in the conversation, I always felt like she walked away with like the advantage from that conversation, right?
Yeah.
There was never an interaction or an exchange where I was like, oh man, that person really got one over on her.
She really knows how to play it flat. And I think Genevieve does that for a living. So she can do the same sort of thing. She has that same skill. But I was really impressed by Rachel's ability to just kind of play it flat, as in like, you give me information and you get nothing in return.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like my facial expressions, whether it's the information I leave up, it's just like, I can be whatever you want me to be because I'm just reflecting back upon your thoughts, desires, and wishes.
But also always doing so in a way where it didn't seem like she was really digging for information or pressing somebody, right? Like they were volunteering whatever intel they were giving her because she just had such like a nice conversational manner about her where it's like, well, what do you think? How do you feel about this? And then people just love talking about themselves. So like blah, 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 and all this word vomit comes out and she just takes, she's like, I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of salespeople could take a master class from her on like the ability to connect with other humans in a comfortable way, right? Because that's all sales is: active listening and then providing a solution to a problem that you uncover.
Wow, thank you. D-Bird for all sales tips, trainings.
That's in the Patreon. We'll give more sales 101. But upcoming, everyone's feeling great. Next up, we got to figure out who gets immunity. So there's a giant obstacle course. Basically they have to do all this shit to figure out who gets to go right to the end, who's gonna sit right next to the winner, and then which two are making fire. I was thinking about this, like, let's say that Teeny, Sam, or Sue win this immunity challenge and they're going to the end. Have they done enough at this point to say, I won one, to your 4 or whatever? I've won 1 to your 3, 4. I deserve to win it all. I was just thinking, like, does it matter?
I would say yes and no. So I would say no to Teeny or Sue. I mean, especially to Teeny, that's a no. To Sue, you'd be like, this is my 3rd overall win, and I'm one of the oldest competitors. I kept it a secret from you because you thought I was 20.
Did Sue win 2?
I thought she won 2. I thought she won 1 reward and 1 immunity. I might be wrong.
Oh, okay. So I was not distinguishing between immunity and reward. I was just thinking for immunities. She's won 1 immunity.
Yeah. She won 1 immunity. For Sam, I would angle it like, yeah, maybe I only won 1 immunity, but this is my 4th overall win because he did win 3 reward challenges. Still, if you're one of those 3 who win, it's not the time to play hero and go up against Rachel for fire. You put someone else there, you guarantee your spot. It's that Jimmy V survive and advance, right? Like, why risk it? Rachel would have to make fire, but don't sacrifice yourself to like build your portfolio for the end game.
See, I kind of disagree. I think that Rachel, in my mind, is the clear choice to win. And so if you won immunity, if you're Sue, if you're Teeny, if you're Sam, any of them, you put yourself against her for fire if you have it like that, right? If you're good at fire, if you have any sort of skills, that's the only chance you have to win. Is like, I knew she was going to beat me if I stood up next to her and I played it safe. So I had to get her out, and that's why I deserve to win, because otherwise she would be here getting the $1 million.
That's interesting. See, because I think that Rachel is probably the consensus best fire. Anybody in that final four, they'd say, yes, Rachel's going to be the best at fire. So I get where you're at. And, it's kind of that heart versus brain, right? Like in my heart, I'm like, I'm a competitor. I want to be the one to snuff her flame. But logically, it's like, why would I take the risk? Why wouldn't I have Sue or Teeny do it and just hope they win? Because I know if by some miracle they knock off Rachel, that win isn't enough to propel them over me if I'm Sam.
I guess it's how comfortable or how confident you are at fire. You know what I mean? Whoever has the best chance of knocking her out, if that's you, then put it in. If it's somebody else, Sue or Teeny, then them. But it has to be somebody to get her out. Otherwise, yeah, like I said.
Yeah. Like if she doesn't win, I think we're in agreement that Rachel's doing fire.
Yeah.
I think where we differ is I'm probably a little bit more conservative, and that I want to solidify my seat at the final three so I can pitch. And you're saying I would roll the dice, push my hand all in, and I would be the one to go up against Rachel because I want to have that notch in my belt.
Well, and I'm thinking from Sue or Teeny, like any of them's perspective, Sam would be the one that you could maybe like sit back and just be like, if either of those two are better at fire than me, then let's put them against Rachel, get her out. Because then I can, easily explain my game versus theirs. However, if I'm them, they could then turn around and say, no, we all knew Rachel was the threat. Even though, I was forced into it, I knew I had to get her out. And it just gives you more agency if you're the one choosing that versus just being thrust into this situation. And yeah, I made a fire go faster. You know what I mean?
That's fair. I don't think Sue would have put Rachel to fire if Sue had won.
Yeah, she's an idiot. She's not there to play Survivor.
But I don't know if it's just her being an idiot or just maybe some ignorance and lack of awareness. I think she probably legitimately thought that Sam was a threat still until the end. Like going into the final four, I don't know that she had Rachel elevated as high as we have a Rachel elevated when that competition starts.
Well, and to maybe backtrack a little bit, it's a good thing when people are loyal, just in life, right? This is a good trait. It's terrible in Survivor because all she has is blinders on. And I kind of agree. I don't think she would have put Rachel up there. And whether she thought she was a big threat or not, I think when she says, you're my number one, nothing can break this, because Rachel shared one piece of information with her, that's going to take her forever. That's just, she means that. And she'll take Rachel to the end to then lose to her just because.
Yeah. So if Teeny wins this competition, and she gets individual immunity, she's guaranteed herself final three.
Yeah.
Who does she put to fire?
So I know Sam would be to fire because it would be Sam and Rachel for sure. Because I think Teeny thinks she has a chance against Sue, which probably. And then she actively hates Sam for no reason because he's a jock and good looking. Everything she was never.
I know. I get it, Sam. I get it.
Yeah. DJB has been experiencing this hate all of his life.
So hard to just be handsome and personable.
What a curse. So yeah, he would go because she hates him actively, and then she would probably put Rachel in there because she does recognize the threat level. And for her, either one of them going would be a win in her book.
Right, which is ultimately a loss too, because whoever comes out of that builds their resume to a point where it's irrefutable that they're the best of the three that's left, right?
Yes.
Rachel or Sam against Sue and Teeny is a win for either Rachel or Sam.
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to the thought I was having of like, if any of these people win one time just to get to the end and say, I'm to the end, I did it when it mattered, I don't think it's strong enough. You had to have been playing before the last day.
Yeah. I had a buddy who ran the Boston Marathon, and he finished the Boston Marathon, and that's fantastic. Like, he crossed the finish line. That's something that, just a fraction of a percentage of people could say they do.
Yeah.
But he didn't medal. And I feel like that's what Sue and Teeny are doing right now. They're just crossing the finish line, but they're not doing so in any way that's going to garner any sort of, reward at the end.
I did the Boston Marathon once.
Did you really?
No, but anyone can, but it proves my point that anyone can say that they did. So I didn't have to do shit, and I can still say that I did.
Well, you're a filthy liar. All right. So the game is afoot. Competition's going.
Competition's going. They have to crawl under a muddy net, use a pole to unweave a rope, and then push that rope over the pegs. Knock off a ball, untie a knot, throw a ball attached to a rope onto a target to pull a drawbridge down, use a clue and letter tiles to solve a combination lock. It's just all sorts of things in this giant obstacle course. A couple scenes of this that I thought were interesting was Sue slammed her head at one point, and just you hear the thunk, and you're like, holy fuck.
She gone.
She did. That's why they don't let oldies on. Also, when they got to the drawbridge part, like, Sam is usually a baller, but he was struggling for some of these.
He was. He flew through the net. He did the little pole thing pretty quickly. He knocked down his rope with one whack of the machete.
Yeah.
And Teeny's like hitting it over and over and telling, like,
trying to slice it like a chef.
What's going on with my rope?
My rope is defective.
I was like, please tell me her sword's not backwards, Andy.
Oh my god.
That's all I was thinking.
Oh.
But I had this sense. I was like, once I saw the puzzle at the end and Sam's flying through things, right? He's going like he struggled a little bit in areas like I thought he'd move quicker in, especially like the ball part.
Yeah.
But he got to the puzzle, and I was like, this has been his Achilles heel the entire season. He has never flown through a puzzle, but it's kind of flown under the radar. Like, no one's talking about it. No one's saying he's bad at puzzles. Like, it wasn't to Rome degrees of ineptitude, but like, he was never good.
No. And, Sam was the first to get the puzzle that says unlock to get his key. And immediately he throws like the little parchment over it so no one could see.
Yeah, that was smart. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't be thinking to do that, but that was a good move.
That was, and it was so fast. He was like, unlock, just poof, and it was like one smooth motion. And then Rachel, on the other hand, she eventually gets the word as well on the puzzle, and she like says it out loud and then like just leaves it out for fucking Teeny and Sue to watch. And even though they knew the word, they're still taking forever. I was like, what? How is this so hard?
Didn't surprise me. We're this many episodes in. Not surprising. That's par for the course for those ladies.
And then they have a bat puzzle? Is it a hanging bat?
Right.
And then Sam, he started out in the lead, but like Rachel just fucking cruised through that. Just boom, 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 boom. To the point where it was a point where like Sue and Teeny just kind of stopped playing and just started watching her. And Jeff made a comment of like, yep, everyone just watch Rachel. It's like more entertaining than what you're doing.
It's funny because well, first I think it's important we call out. So like we've talked about this being the season of misogyny before, right? We've had our bros like TK and Rome who just had this air about him, and Gabe who's calling the women his little birds. We have 3 out of the 4 finalists women.
Yeah.
You think of like spatial awareness as being a trait of men. Like, that's typically a strong suit of men, right? Like packing, unpacking, doing that, like building Legos, construction, like those are like boy men activities. Yet Rachel's the one absolutely demolishing everything with like spatial awareness and puzzle configuration and manipulation of things. And like Sam had the lead, and right away I was like, oh, he's got it. And
Yeah.
he hit a roadblock, and Rachel never did. She was just steady Eddie all the way through.
Plowed through. Yeah. It's funny you say men are normally good at Legos. So I was just over at my girl's house and I got her a Lego plant for Christmas. And she was like starting to mess with it while we were watching, some shitty reality show that wasn't Survivor.
That you picked, yeah.
Yeah. And she's like messing with it, just like, hey, can you help me with this? So now I have like a task right now. She's like, hey, can you help me? Ask me very sweetly. And I'm like, I'm going to fix this for you. But meanwhile, the TV was like just blah, 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 just the most incessant, dumb yapping. And there was a moment where my brain split in half. I was like, I can't do both of these. Turn it off. Turn it off. And we couldn't find the remote. And so I'm like overwhelmed. I'm freaking the fuck out. I'm like, I just need to stop. And that was the first time I was like, do I have autism? Am I autistic? Because this literally almost sent me into a meltdown that we couldn't stop the TV from just shouting at each other while I'm trying to solve this Lego puzzle.
She sounds like a saint. Don't screw this up, Bird. She put up with you having a meltdown over Legos while her show was on.
Trying not to. I did also think it was funny that Rachel called the win before she actually had it. She's like, Jeff. And he's like, nope. And she kind of had to study it for a little bit, but just the ears. Turned the ears around, and then she ended up winning. Shout out Rachel.
My 11-year-old called it. She's like, that's not right. before Jeff said no. She's like, she needs to turn that around. I was like, man. Another point where it's clear that my children are smarter than I am. Because I was like, she's got it. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I didn't see it either, to be fair. So shout out your 11-year-old.
Yeah.
So they say only 5 women in 47 seasons have won 4 individual immunity challenge. And, at the end, she says some inspiring things about determination, blah, blah, blah. Keep pushing. Brr. Yeah. What a juggernaut.
Seriously. And what was that? Like, man, I wish I had taken better notes. Out of those 4, did only 2 win?
2-1.
2-1.
And that's what they kind of kept reminding her is like, yeah, you've won 4 challenges, but you got to do more for Survivor. And then, I was just thinking like, yeah, okay, but what have you done that she hasn't?
And it's what more could she have done?
Yeah. It's like, oh, I didn't need to maneuver and, trick people because I'm just winning so goddamn much. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, out of those 4, 2 have won it all. 2 did not. So she ends up just saying it out there, just throwing it out in front of everyone. Like, it's no secret. Sue's my girl. She's coming with me to final. And honestly, it's good on both parts. On one hand, it shows, loyalty means everything. So it doesn't really make her look bad for bringing a goat, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of both, right? You're bringing someone who has no chance against you, and it's like loyalty. It's like rewarding her for being loyal. So Teeny and Sam are doing fire.
Yeah, and I feel like that decision kind of parallels the thought process Sam had with Andy at the beginning of the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there is something to like hang your hat on as far as loyalty goes, but it's also like he was kind of big broing him, bringing him along because he knew that he didn't have the skills or the ability to do it himself. Yeah. So yeah, that was the absolute right move to do. And like I don't think anybody knew it, but it gets into it right away. It's like Sam's never made fire the entire time.
Yeah.
It's like how, like again, like I'm stereotyping, but I was thinking like he's the last man there. He's got to be doing the fire, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny too, because you know, he even mentions it a little bit. He's like, I know everyone back home is going to be like, how the hell have you made it out here without ever doing fire? But I can kind of see myself doing that too. Just like, I'm tired. I don't want to get up. Like, somebody else will fucking do the fire. Like, I just kind of can see it happening.
Really? So, yeah, I think I'm
but
the
not
exact
now.
opposite.
Now that I know, like, oh, if it goes well, I'm going to have to do fire, I'd probably practice for that reason. But also just not thinking about it, like, somebody else got camp life.
Wow. See, I am the polar opposite.
Yeah. You're going to be a workhorse for your camp?
I don't know, but things that, like, provide comfort, I'm definitely about, right? Like, if it's fire, it's like people depend on me for their warmth. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and make a fire.
Shout out Rogue. What up, playa?
What? Rogue's here? Shouldn't he be sleeping right now? What is it, like 2 a.m.? No, not even. It's like 4 a.m. over there.
Yeah. Do you guys even get Survivor? We're talking about the American version, not the UK version. Okay.
Is there a UK version?
I don't know.
There's an Australian
There's
version.
Australia.
Australia's crazy. Have you seen Australia?
I haven't seen any of them, no.
6:50. Oh, okay. So I'm hoping you're waking up and not still just awake.
Yeah, we're just going to be the kind voices accompanying him to his job.
This is basically his alarm. Like,
So, so Sam is like, they're all talking about who's going to fire. And he's like, man, probably should have practiced fire. And Teeny takes offense. She's like, what? Shut the fuck up, you arrogant. Like, oh, I've never done fire. And she like roasts him to his face. That was so funny.
That was really hard to watch. That was cringy. I was like, why are you upset? Like, no matter what he would have said in that moment, she would have just been absolutely irate. Like,
yeah,
if he said, I'm kind of nervous. Oh, don't you downplay it. It's like, I'm excited. Oh, you are, you arrogant, cocky muh. Like,
yeah. And honestly, it did feel like he was doing that competitive thing where he was like, oh, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. Wink. It kind of felt like he was trying to get in her head a little bit. But also maybe that was just how Teeny reacted to it that made me feel that way. I've seen competitors do that, but also I don't know that it was the intent because it is revealed that he had no clue and he was being serious.
Yeah. I think that just showed kind of the emotional fragility of Teeny. I mean, it's been present throughout the season, but that was like a climax of it where it's like, there's intense pressure now. You're going to have to perform. You cannot rely on anybody else. It's just you and the elements making a fire. And in that moment, that's why I think regardless of what he said, we would have had the same visceral reaction because she had to confront that it's up to her and there is no, backdoor plan. There's no communication channels. Yeah. There's nothing else that could save her.
That's it. And, try as she might, Rachel did try to teach Teeny how to do a fire, basically spent the entire afternoon coaching her. Meanwhile, Sam left to his own devices. He's like, I guess I'll just have to figure it out. And he had one of the best, most powerful edits in this moment that was really inspiring, actually. He's like, talking in the confessional about how you get so close and he can feel it slipping away. And then he reads a letter from his dad that's like, keep going, son, or whatever. Like, go get him, bucko. And he's like, fuck it. He picks up the flint and just, and then you see this montage of him just working furiously until finally lighting the spark. And it all caps off at the end with a cool little like machete chuck into the tree. Just like I conquered it. I started out low and I figured it out.
That was dope. I wanted like the Rocky music to be playing in the
Yeah.
background or something because like yeah, after he read that letter, like some people are gonna say it's corny and it's overproduced or whatever, but like I thought that was dope. Like it got me pumped. I started thinking about like, times that I've had difficulty in my life and just like anchoring myself to something like my grandparents or my father said that's like, okay, I could get through this. And I was actually talking to somebody and they're going through a tough time and they said, I watched this Navy SEALs documentary where they're going through, their training and, I forgot what the cut rate is, but it's intense. It's like, over half the people who try out don't make it.
Yeah.
And it was like interviewing people who did make it. And one guy said, the only way I could get through was telling myself I could do this for 5 more minutes. And then after 5 minutes, I could do this for 5 minutes. And like, that's kind of like the mentality that I thought Sam had was like, I've only got a finite amount of time left. This is hard as hell. I don't know what I'm doing, but I got to put everything in.
Got to put everything in. That, like, sports competition, that's what really like fuels those kind of mindsets, right? Like, I think it's so healthy. And as a coach, you kind of know this stuff, right? Like, this is the type of stuff that you want to instill in people so they can kind of overcome obstacles and take that with them for the rest of their life.
Yeah. And it's like, it is cliche, but you know that there's only I don't know, maybe 10 hours between finding out who's going to make fire and the time you're making fire. It's like, Are you going to let 10 hours of work get in the way for the possibility to change your life forever?
Yeah, that's a good point. So they are all practicing. They do everything they can before the big day, but it's tribal council. And Jeff starts out the tribal by, listing out that of the 4 women that won, 4 individual immunity idols, only 2 won it all. And Sam kind of congratulates her while also shitting on her. Like, now he's in game mode. He's like, oh yeah, that's really cool, but like, you still gotta win it. Like, what else do you do other than winning all the time? Like, oh, it's just so easy for you. It's really hard for me. Am I right, people? Like, everyone's just like winking at the jury the whole time. Yeah, they're positioning themselves even before the fire.
Absolutely. Well, because like every moment is under a microscope right now. Like, you have to do that. He's a politician at this point, like leading up to the election, and he knows that if he's not playing it from the second he's on stage, regardless if he makes that fire or not, they're going to be looking at every single mannerism, every single word, and they're judging you. So yeah, show's on.
Yeah. And then before they start, Teeny and Sam are getting ready to do fire. Teeny says that she has a one-sided rivalry against Sam. And I honestly did kind of like how she was at least self-aware enough to realize, like, Sam didn't do anything, actually. Like, this is me. He probably gets attention from girls. He's very cool. And she said that her gender and identity have been making it complicated out here. And like, look, this might be a hot take, but that was the moment where I was like, if Teeny goes into tribal council, that's their entire pitch. Just like, my identity, my gender, brr, am I right? And then they're like, yeah, so.
Yeah.
Did you get that sense?
Yeah,
like, that was the pitch.
I was a little bit conflicted. I understand why Teeny said the things Teeny said. I also don't think that's reason enough to give somebody $1 million, right? Like, I think everybody has struggles and challenges in life, and I can never empathize with somebody who has, gender fluidity or questions their gender, is transitioning, or doesn't feel connected to their biological gender. And so, like, I won't pretend to understand that. I don't think that having a gender identity different than your biological gender should propel you above somebody else who maybe have life challenges or something like that. that struggle and that circumstance is impactful, but I don't necessarily think it's more impactful than other things that people go through, and that it's worthy of giving you $1 million based on a game that you haven't played well. So like,
I mean, at the end of the day, it is kind of separate from the game altogether. You can argue that you learned a lot while you were out there about gender identity, how you react to these other people you've been put with, for sure. That's really awesome. You get to take that with you forever. That's free. At the same time, yeah, is that enough for a jury to be like, oh, yeah, you struggled because of your gender and identity? Well, 4 individual immunities or teeny struggles with Sam being cool.
Yeah. And Survivor does a really good job with their casting, right? Like everybody's got a story, and everybody's story is unique, and it tugs on your heartstrings because there's something going on with everybody. I mean, Sam left his fiance to come out here for a month, like leading up to a wedding. My wife would not be my wife if I left for a month while we were engaged. Like, so I think because everybody has a little bit of a complicated past or complicated story or entanglements back home or challenges, whether it's, with their family history, like Kyle, like I wouldn't have given Kyle $1 million, even though like I totally empathize with kids who grow up in the foster system. That's like where my heart is working with those kids. But again, I'm judging based on gameplay, and
Yeah.
and I just as Teeny struggles with, being accepted based on how they identify, and Kyle struggles based on not knowing what a traditional family looks like because he bounced around to foster homes. Look, those are amazing things that they're working through, but it doesn't impact how I feel about how you played the game.
Yeah. And look, maybe these are just jaded thoughts of someone who's not on the jury, right? At the end of the day, the jury can make a decision based on whatever criteria they want. I just think in New Survivor, it is mostly like, tell me about your game. What did you do in the game, right? Whatever happened before then doesn't matter. So you could be fucking homeless, and it's like, I don't care. What'd you do in this game? Like, I care, obviously, but like, no, I'm not going to give you $1 million just because you got drugged to the end.
Right. And, part of me almost felt like, while it's very true that I totally believe Teeny's struggling with that and struggling with acceptance, especially on an island where it's very apparent, like there's not social groups. There's not the ability to connect with like-minded people or people who are experiencing the same things. So you probably do feel even more on an island when you're one of 16 and you're the only one representing that demographic. I also feel like it was just kind of thrown out there as a last ditch effort because she didn't have the gameplay. So it's like, this is what I have to lean on right now.
All I got.
Yeah.
So I did like how when Teeny was describing her challenges and her one-sided rivalry with Sam, Sam's response, he just completely ignored it all and was just like, well, my torch still has fire last time I checked, so let's game. Just like, yeah, cool, good luck. And so
perfect response though, honestly, because it's like you can't combat any of that because you don't feel that same way, you don't identify that way, and you're not going to say, yeah, I am a cool jock. So like, game on,
dude. And it's because he's a cool jock. He figured out the perfect response.
Yeah, let's hoop.
Shout out, boy. So they do the fire challenge. Teeny gets a spark, starts, like building her thing, and it's like becoming a fire. And then that's when she turns to Rachel and says, what do I do? Literally her opponent. She's like, what do I do, Rachel? And Rachel's like, keep throwing sticks on it. And I was just like, imagine if Teeny won. Like, just all you'd have to do is, well, you saw, she's asking me. She's going to be the number one. She's asking me what to do.
Yeah. At that moment, I was like, even if you won, you've lost, right? Yeah. Because, oh my God. And what else would you do, Teeny? You have a thin piece of twine and you've got an active fire underneath. You need the fire to reach that, so you build it up. Like, It's not rocket science.
No.
And that's the thing that was absolutely like dumbfounding, is just that you're going to pause in the moment when you have a clear advantage. You're inches away from getting a fire up there. My fingertips my fingers would be blistered because I'd be hands in that fire doing everything I could
Yeah.
to like build it to where it's like a teepee and we're going up, and she just panicked. Like unadulterated panic. Um, Meanwhile, Sam's still Teeny's fire is going everywhere, right? Like it is blowing, it's almost horizontal at this point, and finally Sam gets a little spark going. And like the whole time, Teeny's probably had a fire for it felt like 30 seconds at this point.
Oh yeah.
And like a decent sized fire, and Sam just gets a spark. Like, what was your thought the moment that Sam got the spark?
I was like, there's no way. Like it was a nice try. Like at least he'll get a little bit of fire. But Teeny's fire was whipping that rope. And I'm talking like, who knows with editing and stuff, but it was like on the rope for a long time. So it really felt like at any second this was going to snap. And that's when Sam just started his. But man, it was both kind of the craziest luck and probably some of the most determination I've ever seen. Because there was a moment where like the wind just kind of blew Teeny's fire to the side while Sam's was kind of getting higher.
Yeah, and I didn't know if like they're positioned different or there just happened to be like a wind tunnel somewhere that was only impacting Teeny's fire. But all I was thinking is like, I'm proud of Sam for finishing with pride. Like he's not giving up. Like he's gonna get in second, but it's gonna be a close second, not a distant second. He didn't give up. He didn't stop and watch. And like you see that so often when it comes down to fire, is somebody just kind of resigns and looks over and like watches the flag raise. And he did not do that.
Yeah, he kept pushing, and again, like it's that grit. That's the shit you just got to respect. And because he kept pushing, and maybe with a little help of the wind, maybe not, Teeny's shouting, come on, like fucking snap the rope. But he ends up getting it before she does. He snaps that rope before.
That was inspirational, kind of. Like I did not think he had a chance at all.
No.
Comes back, even when he comes back, I'm like, man, at least he got a spark. He didn't embarrass himself. That was my first thought. And then he just rallies, he sticks with it, he builds a solid structure, and he wins.
The jock won. So
take
all
that, nerds.
Take that. Sand right in the face. So yeah, Teeny is devastated. They all go back to talk to Jeff about it. She's crying and says she believes she would have won it if she would have got there, which get out of here. And then she also says losing to the big, handsome jock is another part she'll have to deal with. And I was just like, if you're Sam, like, thanks, but also shut up, at this point. I don't know.
It just sucks, man. You lose even when you win. Like, I don't know. I've never been like a huge jock. I've always loved sports and athletics, and I'm a super competitive person. And like as a competitor, I've always wanted to be the best. It's like people are like, "Oh, you try hard." It's like, yeah, that's the point, is to try hard. Like that was always the worst insult imaginable. Like, try hard, yeah. What? You don't try at all? Yeah. Like, and so like for somebody to ascend or excel because of their work ethic, because they try, because they practice, to have that used as ammunition against them, I just feel like it's kind of foul play.
Yeah. Agreed.
And like it sucks for Sam, right? Like he's worked hard to get where he's at. He's like, you're not just a natural athlete. Like he clearly works out. He's clearly got a passion for sports. He's a broadcaster. And now it's like you're being punished for being good at things.
Yeah. How dare you be good looking and try hard? Yeah. I really liked also Sam's little speech at the end where he's like, the moment you let your brain get to I'm out, it's self-fulfilling in a way.
Mhm.
And I completely believe that. I feel like there's so many times where like, I could have given up, or like there's a challenge that just, oh man, it seems insurmountable, but you just kind of keep chipping away at it. You keep pushing. And before you know it, maybe you get the outcome you want, maybe you don't, but you'll never find out unless you keep pushing. The second you give up, then that's the only guarantee, is that you're not going to get the result you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And like John Madden said it best, 99% of the game's half mental.
Like Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, and Michael Scott said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah, no, but I do think there is that self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like that if you believe it, you achieve it, you can manifest it. Like it goes both ways. It could be a positive and a negative. If you count yourself out, you're going to be out.
Yeah. So they all disband. They wake up on the beach the next day. It's day 26, the final three: Sue, Rachel, and Sam. It's Sue's 59th birthday. I think she does tell them now.
She does, yeah.
Yeah.
And they weren't as shocked as I think she was hoping.
No. It's like, well, I mean, we said it like in episode 3 or 4 or something when she first lied, and you're like, well, 45 and 59, like to like somebody in their 20s or 30s, it all sounds the same,
Yeah.
Like anything 45 and older, like, oh, you're just an ancient. So like it's not the big difference that you think it is.
Right. Which is funny though, because if you think like the difference between 25 and 40, like that seems like monumental, right? Like your body breaks down in a different way. Like you start gaining weight, lose muscle mass. But for some reason, for people in their 20s to hear, 45 to 59, it's like essentially the same gap, but it doesn't seem like it's like, oh yeah, you're old or you're middle-aged at that point.
But also 25 to 37, I'm the same.
Are you?
Yeah, we'll go with that. Also, one thing that is a common thread through all of these, so they have the final survivor feast, and Sam has his first watermelon.
Yep.
Not
a watermelon guy.
I don't love how this is like he's never had most fruits. Like, what are you subsisting on? How have you not have watermelon, strawberries? Like, what's wrong with you?
Where did he grow up?
I don't know.
It had to be someplace cold, because out here in California, fruit salad, yummy, yummy. I'm about that all summer. Like,
this is the hip hop. This is as hip hop as it gets, folks. Fruit salad, yummy, yummy.
Well, that was a Wiggles song. Fruit salad, yummy, yummy.
Oh my god!
I've got kids.
We should remix that for sure.
Yeah, it'll be a bop.
So Sam's thoughts on watermelon: I'll eat it, but I don't love it. Which, again, that's one of the most egregious shit. Watermelon's great.
Yeah. Ooh, it depends on the kind of watermelon you get. Like, have you ever got a watermelon without flavor where it just tastes like the rind?
No. Well, yes, but
yeah. See, now you're thinking.
Okay, now I'm thinking.
A good watermelon, nearly undefeated. A bad watermelon, still all right. But if that was my first watermelon, if a bad melon was my first melon experience, I'd understand it.
Yeah. So they do the Fallen Friends montage that they always do, where they kind of name off all the players and, give a little tribute. And then it shows kind of those players talking about the remainder of the players. Like, they're on the jury now. So it's like, oh yeah, Gabe, he was such a good soul, just such a good, loving boy. And you see Gabe like, fuck them all. I should have been there. But was there any of those kind of old player interviews where they talk about the remaining 3 that really stood out to you?
Actually, like you brought up Gabe, and like the way he talked about Sue seemed a little bit more endearing than what I thought he
Yeah.
had in him. Like he genuinely seemed like he cared about Sue in that interview, even though the gameplay to me looked otherwise. And maybe it was just editing, but like that was one of the things that drove me most nuts about him. It was like how he literally had this arrogance that everybody was beneath him, especially the women, and that bothered me.
Really grinded your gears.
It did. Cheesed my chaps, so to speak. But in the interview, he did seem like he genuinely cared for her. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I did like that. I think one of the purpose of these montages is to kind of throw, oh, it could be anyone's game, right? Because a couple of them said nice things about Sam. Kyle was like, Sam, man, he's been scrapping by, and like Sierra's clearly in love with Sam, so she gave him compliments. Caroline and Gabe both were kind of like, Sue, so loyal, so loyal. That's my lady. Obviously, people had nice things to say about Rachel. And then so Sue, it does show her in a confessional, and she's like, I ain't no goat. She sees Rachel and Sam high-fiving, and she's like, I fooled them into underestimating me. Gotcha. And that's when I was like, oh, I already know what she thinks her pitch that's going to win is. For Teeny, it was the identity. For Sue, it's also, I'm old. Surprise.
And I outsmarted everybody by thinking they could just pull me along, and now you're all going to vote for me. It was just like so tone deaf. Like there was no chance she was getting a single vote, but she had convinced herself otherwise.
There was a lot of delusion in this season, and we don't know what it's like to be out there. Granted, you're starved. You feel like maybe the jury, there's some friends that you made on the jury, right? Like I was really close with this person, that person, and it's a game of math of like, do they like me enough to just give it to me? Maybe. But again, I think it goes back to like new Survivor these days, unless the jury is super bitter, they're going to give it to the person who played the best game. And it's just not a charity case. It's not, oh, you're old. Oh, you're right. You do deserve the money for being out here doing what we all did, but just being old about it.
Just being old about it. I agree. And I think in this season in particular, there weren't a lot of people who were bitter at the end, right? Like I think everybody kind of understood that this was a game. And even if they got blindsided, it was like a mutual respect. Even Andy, who I think probably got like one of the worst blindsides, was kind of like, you know what, tip of the cap, good game. And so based on how people exited and who was up at the end between Sam, Rachel, and Sue, I thought it was going to be pretty clear once the votes came in that Sue was going to – I thought she was going to unanimously win, honestly.
Yeah, clearly. So they're all at final tribal council. First thing I noticed was Saul's scarf, his Aladdin vest and his scarf.
Baller.
Thug. And then the Gabeinator kicked it off.
Yeah.
Apparently Kyle had a sweet little nickname for him.
God, my dog is just not very ladylike right now. Oh God, class it up, pup.
Love it.
My favorite, can I say my favorite quote of the episode?
Yes.
So Jeff asked Gabe, like, how did you separate like emotions from gameplay? Did you have difficulty doing that? He's like, look, Jeff, I knew I was gonna have to crack a few eggs to make an omelet.
Yeah. Which it's funny when you lay it out there like that. It's true. That's one way to play the game, and probably a smarter way than like a Sue. But it is funny that he's just like, yeah, I didn't care about any of these people.
But like, yeah, he's just so flamboyant with it. Like, nah,
Yeah.
no emotions.
Yes. There were some people that were like, yeah, it was hard. And he's like, no, no.
And that's why you're a sociopath.
I loved that moment where, so he kicks it off. He's like, so how do you think your game will be remembered, Rachel? And she talks about being an underdog. The entire time, Sam's like shooting her evil glances, like, no, that's my story. I'm the underdog. Yeah. You're not shit. Fuck. Like, you don't get to steal my pitch.
Yeah. And how do you out underdog Rachel? Because she had a great argument going in. Like, she was the underdog. Like, until Saul saved her, she was the bottom.
Yeah. I mean, it is true. Like, it's easy to forget because she kept winning individual immunity, but like they did try to vote her out and she saved herself with an idol. She was on the bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, she was left out of a bunch of votes between Andy flip-flopping around and, you know.
Yeah. So what do they merge with? Do they merge with 9 or 10?
I don't remember.
I think they probably merged with 10, right? And so at that point, she saved herself 5 times through 4 immunity wins and the idol that Saul did. So that means 50% of the time, even if she was on the bottom, she still found a way to stay safe.
Found a way. And Sam, Rachel says, it doesn't matter about my legacy, blah, blah, blah. I think she's trying to be humble here. Sam is like, no, I'm going to take the opposite tactic. I do want to be remembered. I want to leave a legacy because I tried hard. I'm scrapping by. So I think that he had to say that, and he executed it masterfully to kind of like separate him from her. And then meanwhile, Sue, she's like, yeah, how do I want to be remembered? Well, back home, it's actually my birthday. I'm 59. And like, yeah, I don't think that many people were shocked. I think they're like,
no one was moved. I think there were a couple of people who did it for the camera just to make her feel good. Like, oh, wow. But realistically, like, no one cared. So I'm sorry. I think it's amazing. Like, I think it'd be tough to be out there at any age and being 59, like eating off the seniors menu at Denny's and still scrapping with the young bucks. Like, I think that's phenomenal. But to your point, these youngs who are out there running with her, for the most part, I don't think could care or like even conceptualize how much more difficult it would be.
Yeah. Right. And like, she's like, so I'd be the oldest player to win Survivor, so vote for me. And just like, okay. It's not a good argument.
Fell on deaf ears for sure. But I mean, I think if she positioned it differently or she had some sort of a resume leading into it, it would have held more weight. But she didn't have a resume. She never made a move. She won, I think, 1 or 2 challenges, combined between immunity and rewards. But she was often on the wrong side of the votes, or she was just being told what to do at the end. And I think she was at the greatest disadvantage because her shield was Kyle was winning everything when they're on the tribe. Like, Kyle and Gabe were holding that tribe down for sure. Caroline was by far the brains of the operation. So she never had to take a position of leadership the entire season.
Yeah. It's true. And when she did find an advantage, right, there's a whole like thing, a whole big moment where she found an idol, right? And there was blood red paint splattered everywhere. And she did kind of a poor job hiding it, but I think got away with it for a long time. But what did you do with it? Nothing, right? Mm-hmm. There was not once that she conceptualized a plan to use that idol to better her game.
Right. Even if it wasn't used on herself, like she could have put her teammates in a better position to, carry her to the end. And I think
Caroline. They voted Caroline out. And if she would have been in on that or been smarter about it, she could have saved her number 1.
And I think to Sue, she thought that was a feather in her cap that she was able to keep this secret and hold on to this the whole time without needing to use it. But to me, it almost underscored her inability to be aware of how to like leverage situations.
100%. I think that having an advantage and doing nothing with it almost is worse than not having an advantage at all.
Hmm.
You know, okay, you scrounged around in the jungle and you got it, but then what? Like, that's why Rachel's literal game saving move with using an idol that no one knew about, sneaking up to under a bush and eavesdropping to understand, oh, I actually do need to use this tonight for myself. Yeah, that's how you do it. You know?
I mean, to me, it's the equivalent of saying, like, I played an entire game, I never missed a shot. Yeah, but you never shot either. Like, so you never even had a chance to score because you didn't shoot. So, yeah, there were no errors, there were no turnovers, but you never put yourself in a position to better yourself.
So, Sue. So Saul brings up how he gave Rachel an advantage. She had all these advantages. He's like, yeah, but what else? Really tell me something to blow my mind. So Rachel just kind of says, I played my idol in the best way possible, saved myself. Sam, I thought was interesting because he said he had to gas Rachel up so high to kind of put the target on her so no one would look at him. So that was kind of a interesting response of like, this was on purpose. We knew she was a big threat, but that was because of me gassing her up.
Mm-hmm.
Fair argument. Yeah, I felt like
I wanted to talk about Operation Italy a little bit more. Like,
yeah,
I thought that was pivotal, and I think it would have been a great opportunity for him to take that away from Andy and
yes,
use that as like, this was the biggest move of the game. This is when the tides turned, because at this point it was very clear what was going to happen, who was going to run roughshod through the rest of the game. And without doing this move, I wouldn't be here today. And he didn't, he just let it sit there.
yeah. I think that was a big miss on his part. He needed to talk about Operation Italy more and really lean into like, yeah, Andy came up with the plan, but it was me and all the work me and Genevieve were doing with the fake idol, with the acting. Like, the only reason I'm staying here right now is because we pulled this big move.
Right. And even if Andy came up with it, like, Andy wouldn't have been able to do it alone, right? And Andy wouldn't have even been like propositioned with that unless oh, my buddy Rubbermaid me just joined.
Shout out Rubbermaid.
Yeah. Crushed him like a grape in fantasy. The only reason that was even a viable option is because Genevieve and Sam decided that they needed to link up together to sway Andy. So like, Andy's like, hey, I'll go to you, I'll flip with you, but he wouldn't have flipped with them unless Genevieve and Sam had already shown that they were going to be too strong together.
Yeah. Andy's question to the group, of course, being the robot, had to be running the analytics on this. If you look at all of the votes, you run the analytics on it, you had the worst voting record of the final three, Rachel. Reconcile this. And she says, I guess I just couldn't convince other people to do my bidding the way I wanted them to. And I was like, what? You're going to admit that at Final Tribal? And Sam hopped all over that. He was like,
smart.
Oh, you hear that? Oh, I guess she wasn't in control of her own game.
Which is the exact thing that he needed to do. But I think that also does play into her, like, I'm the underdog, right? Like, I was on the wrong side of the votes more than anybody else, and I still found a way to persevere.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what you gotta do. Like, she played such a dominating game, but at the same time, you gotta try. Throw those barbs, like, oh, you weren't in control of your stuff, like, here's all the times that I got voted for and I'm still here. Like he was just hammering her. And I think he did a pretty good job of playing defense.
Yeah, I would agree. So after all said and done, what are your thoughts before they go to Parchment?
All said and done, I think that Sam did a good job doing defense. I don't know, or I think he did a good job doing offense where he was kind of chirping at Rachel and kind of sending her the weird looks like, are you serious? Are you kidding? You know, what a stupid thing to say. Like he was having that facial expression the whole time, like, what a stupid thing. But I don't know that he necessarily talked up his game the way I wanted him to for Operation Italy, for like, we were in control, but Andy kept on flipping. So then I had to pivot. And then I found Genevieve. Like, I think he has a story in here that he didn't necessarily tell as well.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that Rachel, she did a pretty good job, but I don't think she really fully owned it. Like, I dominated on the challenges. I played the idol for my, like, she kind of said that direct answer to Saul, like, I played it the most perfect way I could. But I think you lean into that of like, I wouldn't be here right now if I didn't have the wherewithal to understand it was going to be me that night and have found an idol from the work I did. Here's what I did to get the idol, kept it a secret, told no one other than my number one Sue, the loyal goat, and boom, played this when I knew I needed to. No one can fuck with me. I'm the best that's ever played. I wanted her to lean into that. And then Sue did exactly what I thought this goat fuck would do, which is just, I'm old. Anybody? So that's my final thoughts. What did you think?
Similar. So I thought Sam really did miss a couple good opportunities to talk about what his gameplay actually was, especially with Operation Italy. You know, there's like pinpoint, like pivotal moments where he's like, I did this here, I did this here. Sierra and I decided to do this here. This is what set us up for the merge. Once we got to the merge, this is how I reacted once Sierra was gone. This is how I garnered a relationship with Saul and got in with Lavo. He missed all that. We already talked about Operation Italy. That should have been what he hung his hat on, because that's one of the biggest moves in Survivor history, I think, as far as from like swaying things 180. I thought Rachel should have leaned more into like her ability to just stay fluid throughout any situation. Because if you're on the wrong side of the vote, but you're still surviving time after time after time, well, that shows me that you have the awareness and the skill to just be malleable to any environment or conditions. And she didn't really talk about that much. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, I think that was the most impactful part of her game, was not necessarily winning the immunities. Like, she had to do that, but also even when she was winning, like you said, she didn't give anybody anything. She always stayed stoic. Like, you could not read her poker face. She had the conversation she had to have, and she always came out with the advantage after those conversations, whether it was information or getting somebody to, you know, kind of go in a different direction other than her.
Yeah.
And she didn't do a good enough job articulating that. But I also think that she said enough where she didn't damage her chances of winning. Like,
yeah, you didn't lose it.
Yeah, she played it safe.
Yeah. Well, when all is said and done, they count up the votes. Sam got 1 vote. Rachel got all the rest. The 1 vote was from Kyle, who said, I like his ethic. This man means a lot to me. So
They point to each other?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, he said he found a way to find a way, which I think is kind of a cool thing. And that was one of Sam's mottos the whole time, right? And like, just getting back to that grit that you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
I thought Sierra was going to give him a vote, though. Didn't you?
I did too. I'm a little surprised. I thought Sierra would give him a vote. Was there anyone else that I thought would give him a vote? I don't think so. I did think Sierra, though.
Yeah.
Just out of loyalty.
I didn't know what Gabe was going to do. And I didn't know if Caroline was just going to give a pity vote to Sue.
Sue. Yeah. Both Gabe and Caroline, I was wondering if anything would float to Sue because they're like, we don't think she'll win, but like, love you, girl, you know?
Yeah.
But not even.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be unanimous or there'd just be like offshoot votes, but other than Rachel winning, she clearly played the most dominant game.
Yeah. And what I was saying before I was rudely interrupted by the internet was Rachel and Caroline were also tight. So
yeah.
Understood. Well, as far as the after party, after show, it was kind of funny the moment. So, you know, they're talking about it. What does it feel like? Oh, out of body experiences. And even as they're talking to Rachel about like winning, Jeff is kind of commenting on Sam's like good final tribal. And then turns to Sam and is like, does it give you a sense of pride that you made a good argument? Kind of felt like a little like just rubbing the dagger in a little bit more.
Kind of condescending, right? Like,
yeah,
you did really good in that moment, but Sam, it just wasn't good. And like, if I'm Sam, like, can I just have my champagne and pizza, please? Like,
yeah. Oh, you were so close to winning, but you tried real hard.
Yeah, exactly. Try hard.
It's also funny that they do the show right afterwards now too. That it's just like, boom. All right, here's the votes. Let's talk about it with some pizza and champagne. Makes everything a little raw.
Yeah, I kind of liked it when it was different, where they like flew back to LA and they walks down the ceremonial like thing and they pull it there and you're like, oh my god, they gained all their weight back. Like,
it is kind of fun when it's like, oh, everyone's back in their element, right? Like this is, you know, they're all wearing Aladdin vests and whatever crazy shit that they normally wear back home. Gabe with his cholo outfit. But yeah, I miss that a little bit too. It's a different vibe altogether.
Did they do like the fan favorite? Did I miss that?
No, they didn't.
Okay.
And yeah, like the Sia award. Maybe she just got tired of giving out money too. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
but like they did that in Survivor and they did that in Big Brother. There was always like a fan favorite who'd get like $50,000. So it was like nowhere near the total. But I'm thinking like, you know, I've been thinking who is my fan favorite the whole time, and I'd probably go Sam.
I think Sam would take it. I mean, especially like his edit was heroic. You know what I mean? From like, oh, reading my dad's letter, and then I just figured out just keep trying, keep pushing. Somehow I found a way. Yeah. He was my favorite too. Like even early on, I think episode 2 or 3, I was like, that's my boy. That guy's dope.
So when we started this, you said you think it was one of the best seasons of Survivor.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I think because of the characters. I think the casting was really good in that, like, you had some dudes that were very hateable, like Rome. I think TK with his misogyny, Gabe with his misogyny. You also had some people that were very likable, Sam, Rachel. And then you had the cold, calculated types like Genevieve. Like you had a little bit of everything. And I think from Operation Italy, that was a crazy turn of events. I think Rachel saving herself with an idol that no one knew about, that's, you know, all of the votes were put on her. She was going home, but she saved herself. That's huge. I just don't think you see that many big moves. Although there were a few frustrating, like, oh, really? We're not going to shake up the boat. Like when Rome was still in, I was like, why is this guy still here?
Yeah.
Why are we going for the obvious ones? but eventually, like, that only lasted 1 or 2 episodes, and everything else, there was some real roller coaster moments.
Yeah, I agree. I think I was underwhelmed with the final four because I thought it was kind of a runaway that if Rachel was up there, she was going to win. If Rachel wasn't up there, Sam was going to win. And I didn't like that, you know, you could see the end and know that there were no more plot twists with the last episode.
Yeah.
But I do like that there was a lot of moments that you couldn't predict, right? Whether it's Operation Italy and that actually working, which I gave like a 2% chance of
Yeah.
working, especially because
Especially with
Andy.
I was gonna say this, especially with Andy's acting, like, no, I'm pretty sure she has an idol.
Yeah, it's like, man, he's got way too big of a role in this for it to actually be successful.
Yeah.
And then, like, you know, Genevieve, she was so cutthroat, she got rid of her guy Keyshawn right away just because it made sense. And, you know, Saul's relationship with Rome going back and forth, and then Saul trusting Andy, and, like, you know, Andy flipping for 4 consecutive votes.
Yeah.
There was a lot of moments where it's like, I don't know who's truly with who and if there is any loyalty beyond Sue and Caroline.
Well, and I forgot about some of those earlier moments. So that was a very fun rivalry to watch play out between Saul and Rome, where Rome was also kind of like a more obnoxious Sue type, where at least on the surface and kind of from his confessionals, it seemed like he was rolling with the people he was rolling with, and he had no concept of like pivoting or using other players or connecting with anyone else outside of his group. So when Saul was on the out group and he was like, yeah, man, you're going to be going home. Like, I wouldn't even look for an idol. That shit's just so below you. It's embarrassing, bro. You know, like, that was hilarious. And he's just like standing there. It's like, it's a free country, free world. I can like follow you around if I want. You remember? He's like,
I do remember. And like the whole time I'm thinking like, so what happens when they merge? Like what happens if his boy gets knocked off or like Teeny's not there to shield him, which is bizarre to even think that Teeny was, like, you know, shielding him.
yeah.
But like he was so laser focused on like, I'm rolling with this crew. Saul's gone. No one likes him. And I'm Jordan. Like, but I was thinking like there's no thought, like forethought to like end game or jury management or relationship management or being able to move when conditions vary. And like, and he was annoying and he was a little bully. And like Saul at one point is like, I don't get bullied by people, especially his size.
Guys, yeah. That was hilarious. I also, you know, taking it back when Andy had his little freak out on the beach. He's like, I was gonna throw my number one under the bus. And everyone's like, what is he? What? Is he saying that out loud right now? That was like episode 1.
That was episode 1. And John, the dude from last podcast on the left, was like, I forgive you, but man, you got to be better. Tighten up. And then John goes home. It's like the dude's too cool with somebody freaking out saying like, yeah, I was going to throw you under the bus. Remember Andy was like, you're gay, right? Well, yeah, I'm bisexual. My girlfriend just found out. And like having these like deep layered conversations the first episode, and then like after he has this breakthrough and this huge confession with this guy, he's like, yeah, I'm getting rid of you because I just had heat exhaustion and no one clapped when I cracked a coconut, and they clap for you.
Yeah. Why am I not being praised when I chop coconuts? I'm a loser. No one likes me. And oh my God, all of the hate and the rage in me just directed like a beam right onto him.
Such a bizarre turn of events for the first episode that like you get into some like real deep personal stuff, like things that you're still like letting, you know, real life family members and friends know about. You spill it all to this guy, you form a connection, You get hot on the beach doing a challenge. You're like, yeah, I'm getting rid of him. I'm freaking out. You tell everybody that you're emotionally unstable.
Yeah.
And then it worked. How did it work?
I mean, I don't think it worked as much as like people realized, oh, this is a person I can sort of predict. Like he wore all of his emotions on his sleeve. He's not that smart, right? He just didn't know how to play. And so I think Sam, Sierra, they all were like, "Oh, I'm going to keep this guy around because if I'm sitting next to him, easy." And like he doesn't think for himself, right?
See, I think the opposite. I think how predictable can this guy be if he's already getting rid of his number one?
Well, that's also a good point where like, this guy clearly flip-flops, he's not to be trusted. But as you see, I mean, we saw how that played out over the course of the season. I could see where somebody would think, oh, this guy's going to be kind of an easy drag along. But I don't think they counted on just how chaotic he would be throughout the season.
That's fair. That's very fair. Yeah, so it was a good season, but again, I'm not putting it in my top tier because I think it was one of the weakest Final Fours we've had.
When you just look at it through those lenses, like I'm looking at all the moments and all the different characters. When you look at it just through the lens of the Final Four and the final result, yeah, I guess I could see that. I'd tend to agree. But it happened. It is now complete. Rachel, the sole survivor, as your boy predicted. All hail the D-Bird. Yeah.
Yep. I don't like it, but I'll give you your flowers.
You know what's funny? Give me flowers. I wish I had the soundboard. That's a dice move. You know what's funny about this whole thing too? The only reason I picked Rachel, I think, was because the very first episode that we recorded of this, I was doing it on the fly. I had their faces with their names up on like a different browser tab. And I was literally reading off of a summary. I didn't take notes. I was in San Diego remote. So I was like, I didn't have anything prepared. And I was just like, which one? That one. That one, I think. Rachel. Yep. She'll do good.
Didn't she steal the rice in the first episode?
I think that was a little later in the season.
Oh, really?
That was when I was like, really, my pick's legit.
Yeah, because that was next level. Like no one thinks about that. No one's ever tried it, and it's like maybe they get prepped and they say, "Hey, you can't take anything from the challenges," but like the audience never knew that. And I was like, "That's a heads up move."
Super smart. Yeah, and they're capturing everything. But what if she got away with it? I would have loved to see that.
Oh yeah, me too. Rice party.
Rice party. Yeah. So. Shout out, Rachel. You dominated this season, and we're all very proud of you. Small golf clap.
Yeah. Do you think anybody's getting brought back from this season if they do like an All-Stars or something? Anybody you'd like to see again?
Yeah. I'd like to see Sam. I'd like to see Genevieve. I could see them making a pitch for Gabe, but I wouldn't want to see him back. I think it's like anybody that has like a shot to say, oh, if these factors were a little different, I would have had a shot. Yeah. I think Genevieve can say that. I think Gabe's going to say that. I don't know if I believe it. And Sam was like great TV. Like he is the hero archetype that I think could do a do-over. What do you think?
Those were the exact two that came to mind. And then Rachel, just because I feel like she kind of just ran through this season. Honestly, I'd like to see her go up against another cast and see if she could repeat.
Are there any survivors from past seasons that you want to see on again?
I keep wanting to call him Charlie. Is it Charlie from last year? Who is with?
Yeah, he was with Maria.
I feel like he could have won and should have won, and he's a chameleon. He would do great in any season. I'd be interested to see Kyle back from this season, honestly, just with
Yeah.
as big of a comp beast as he was.
Mhm.
Um, I don't, honestly, maybe even Maria from last year too, or last season.
Yeah.
She's kind of like the archetype, like Genevieve, right? Where she was cutthroat, she was savvy, super smart.
Played the mom role until she couldn't.
Yeah,
Until she slit your little baby throat.
yeah. Jeez, that got dark. What about you?
I'm just brought me back to that challenge where everyone was conspiring against Maria, and Liz actually went and helped
Mhm,
Kenzie and was
mhm.
like, here, have my, it was like carrying wood for her. I was like, this is kind of fucked up. I don't like this.
Yeah,
Liz sucked. Um,
Liz was like a female Rome.
yeah. Applebee's.
Only person in the world. That's why she got that far. It's like Applebee's like, look, we really need this right now. We're basically Chili's light.
I mean, even though she didn't win, she could definitely like make a play to be a pitch person for Applebee's. Be
For
like,
sure.
yo, put me in some commercials, dog.
Wasn't
Um,
she like a millionaire too? Wasn't she super rich?
that's what she said over and over again. Yeah, she
Yeah.
said she was. Um, honestly, like I'd love to see some shit stirrers. I like Tony. I thought Tony was really funny from
Yeah.
like back in the day with his tribal tattoos.
Yeah.
I'd love a Boston Rob. I feel like that would be like, oh man, it's because they brought him back a couple times, and for him to come back again, as removed as he is from the game, I still think that would be a real like a hook that would get people really interested. Like, oh, he's back. What? Same thing kind of with Parvati. Um, who I really want to see though is Russell. I think he was one of the
Oh, he was the
funniest.
worst.
He was
Because
such a bad guy. So bad. But he made great television.
what? Who was it Brandon? Who was his nephew who was on and burnt the socks?
Brandon, yeah.
Yeah. So what? Why don't they just do an all villain season? They've done heroes versus
Oh,
villains. What if it's just villains versus villains?
I don't think that the family programming would let them. Like, you got to have the heroes to balance out the bad guys, but I'd love an all bad guys
Oh, put it on
where you can't trust
HBO.
anyone.
Yeah, put it on HBO. Let it become Lord of the Flies. Just give them one
Oh,
conch and see what happens.
I love this idea. This is what we need to have happen. All villains survivor.
Yeah, CBS, give us a call. We'll build the roster.
Oh, yeah, we've got some thoughts. All right. Well, did you have any other final thoughts for this season, DJB?
No, I just want to thank you, man. It's been a lot of fun. I've always watched it with my family. It's something that we all do together, but I've never talked about it like this. And I just really enjoyed hanging out with you every week and chopping it up and not being nerdy at all.
This has truly been my pleasure. I appreciate your thoughts and feelings. I haven't had anyone to ever talk Survivor with before, so glad we got a chance to do it.
Yeah.
And shout out Genevieve, aka Jessica Biel. I did have one note that I wrote.
Pinky
for
up. Oh,
Jessica
pink.
Biel.
That represents manhood.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Okay. I did write one note on Genevieve for the final like after show or whatever. I said octopus neck.
What does that mean?
There was just one scene where she's like leaning back and there's like 8 veins in her neck just bulging out. Jeff asked her a question. She's like, and then just it was wild.
So now I know why Rubber made me post that. He's a big fan of vascularity, usually in the chest and shoulders, but he'll probably take some neck veins too.
Well, there's a great pausable scene where you get like 8 neck veins popping for Genevieve, aka Jessica Biel.
If that was a VHS, that would be worn out.
Remember in Knocked Up where they have that website where they're like, yeah, here's the moments where you pause it on all the DVD, you know.
Oh, like Mr. Skin? Who's Mr. Skin?
What? Oh, kids will never understand
Nope, they don't make good comedies anymore. That's the problem.
that too.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great comedy. Again, really appreciate you for watching along. And until next time, folks, signing off.